Today we at Scanditech will show you how to replace the battery in the iPhone 7. Let's begin by taking a look at our battery kit with the included tools. Again, we thank you for choosing Scanditech. There are some details here in our brochure. So we'll go ahead and keep removing layers here. So here we have a tweezers for assisting with removing the battery and different parts of this procedure. Here we have a pentalobe screwdriver for removing the pentalobe screws in the bottom of your phone. Here we have a plastic pry tool. We have another plastic pry tool, spudger tool, to assist with removing connectors in different parts of our procedure today. Here we have a Phillips screwdriver for assisting with removing some of the internal screws. Here we have a suction tool for assisting with opening up the front screen. And here we have a battery inside an electrostatic discharge safe plastic bag. And here are the adhesive strips that hold down the battery inside the phone. Now in the actual kit for the iPhone 7 we will be including a few extra things like waterproof adhesive for the screen, and we will be including a tri-point screwdriver for removing some of the internal screws as well. Now that we've gotten ourselves familiar with all the tools, let's go ahead to the battery replacement itself. As with any hardware replacement, complications can arise, but if following this guide and our text guide with pictures, which can be found on our website, with patience we'll walk you through the process step by step. We recommend listening to the whole video without skipping any steps as we highlight potential difficulties. We'd like to take this opportunity to issue another warning. The battery replacement in an iPhone should be taken seriously. There is always a risk with disassembling electronic devices, even if you follow this guide word for word. The iPhone battery, much like any lithium battery, is sensitive and will catch on fire if it is severely damaged, bent, or punctured. Be very careful when working near the battery. If your original battery is already damaged or swollen, it is extra sensitive. We at Scanditech do our best to guide you through the replacement process, and our customer support is always at your service. But ultimately, the responsibility of the replacement process lies with you. During this clip, we will be adding text bubbles, also called annotations, throughout the video. Make sure you have the annotation setting enabled to not miss crucial information. We also wanted to mention that the iPhone 7's water-resistant ability may be compromised without the front assembly adhesive, or if it's not installed correctly. Included in our kit for the iPhone 7 will be adhesive for the front assembly, but we can't guarantee the phone's water resistance after the installation. So now the next thing to do is to power off your device. So let's go ahead and power it off. Next we will begin by removing these two pentalobe screws in the bottom of the phone right here using our pentalobe screwdriver. Let's go ahead and remove those screws. Once you loosen them, if they don't want to come out with the screwdriver, you can just grab your tweezers and set them off to the side. So now with this iPhone 7, what's different than previous generations? Before the iPhone 7, connectors on the top of the screen here, and they tip up like this. The iPhone 7 is different in that the connectors inside are here and here on this side, and so they tip like a book like this. So let's keep that in mind when we open this up. Now next, what we recommend is to use like a heat gun or hair dryer like this. When you're using this, the goal is just to soften this adhesive around the edge here, but not damage anything inside. So we want to just do a little bit at a time, make sure so you can for sure touch it. It's not too hot to the touch. Next, after applying heat all the way around on the edge here, we'll use this suction cup. Press it down just above the home button. If you put it over the home button, it won't suction. So now that we've applied a little heat, we want to use our tweezers like this that comes in the toolkit. And we want to go right above where this speaker is. And we want to just press down in there. And since you softened the adhesive with the heat gun, it should come apart very easily. You see the gap in there? Make sure to go between the frame and the plastic part there, not between this plastic layer and the screen. Now that we got it started with this, we're going to use this plastic pry tool. We're going to slip in right beside it. You can get rid of that tweezers. Now we're going to slide carefully over to here. Slide back and forth. Come around this corner. You can see it's starting to separate here with just a slight upward tension on this suction here. Now if we slide along the bottom part and this side right here, we're going to leave the top for now because the top has tabs that stick underneath. Now we don't want much upward tension right now at all because right here, be mindful of the ribbon cables that connect the screen. Slide all the way to the top corner and stop for now. Now let's remove the suction cup. You don't want much tension at all up here because of the cables in here. But what we want to try to do is grab this and we want to wiggle the screen a little bit to try to get a little bit of room up here because there's tabs that stick underneath the top here. And then when we have a little bit of room, we're going to try to cut this adhesive on the top part right here. Now you can see there's starting to be a gap here. The adhesive is cut through, we got a little bit of room. So now this whole screen can tip up like this. So now that our whole screen is tipping up like this, You can see here is the one ribbon cable, and here's the other ribbon cable that we need to be aware of. So these cables have enough slack in them. This one's the tightest one, but they have enough slack that if you're careful, you can pretty much lay this screen right down. Just for demonstration, I'm going to use this plastic pry tool here. Since it's about a ½ an inch thick, I'm going to lay it on here. I would recommend getting something flat like a book or something, but just for demonstration purposes, you can see that the screen can be completely open like this without putting too much tension on this cable right here. But what we're going to do and what we recommend is to take the screen completely off, so we wanted to show you how to do that as well. So the first step is going to be to remove the plate right here, and it has 4 tri-point screws in it, and we want to use the tri-point screwdriver that's provided in the kit. Now these screws are going to be different size, so you want to make sure to keep them all in the right order when you take them apart so you know how they go back together. Next, we're going to carefully remove this plate right here. So for now, the only connector that we want to remove is the battery connector right here. So using our plastic pry tool, we're going to disconnect the battery right here. And now I don't have the actual iPhone 7 battery, but I will show you how to test this out. So what you would do is lay your new battery from our kit on top of your battery here. You would connect it where the old battery was connecting. Then gently lay your screen on top of it. Power on your phone. Once your phone is powered up, you may get this error here because of it not being all together. Just hit OK. Then you want to check and see that your battery percentage is at least 15% or more. Go ahead and turn your phone back off. Then we want to open this back up. You want to keep it supported. Then you would disconnect your new battery. Then we can proceed with the next steps. Next we'll want to use our pry tool. We want to disconnect this connector here and disconnect this connector here. Now be very, very careful when you're disconnecting these so you don't tear or damage these at all. Otherwise you could potentially lose functionality of your screen and other important areas. Next we'll use our Phillips screwdriver that came with the kit. We're going to remove these 2 screws in this shield right here. Again, make sure to keep these in the right order as you take them apart. Next, remove this plate. Then we're going to use our plastic pry tool. Disconnect this connector right here, and the whole screen is free to lift off. Let's take the opportunity right now to check the screen edge and the edge of the phone here, and let's remove all this adhesive residue. Be careful, what you can do is just use the tweezers and you can slide along and just loosen that adhesive right off of there. But you want to get it as clean as possible so your new adhesive will stick well. Now the next step will be to remove this Taptic engine, and we're going to use our Phillips screwdriver again. And we're going to remove these 3 screws in this Taptic engine right here, and these 2 screws in this plastic part below the Taptic engine right here. So again, make sure to keep those screws all in the right order when you take them out so you know how they go back together. Now that all our screws are out, let's remove this plastic part right here, set it off with our screws. Then we need to use our plastic pry tool and remove this connector right here for the Taptic engine. Then I'm going to use a tweezer so it's easy for you to see. We'll grab our Taptic engine and set it off with our screws. Next we'll use our tweezers and we will peel up these tabs right here for the plastic strips. Get those peeled back and ready. We'd once again like to point out that you've come to the part that the majority of first-time technicians find the most challenging. We recommend removing the battery by pulling these adhesive strips from underneath the battery, as it is by far the safest way. However, this method is no fail-safe. The adhesive can tear when you pull it, and your best chance of getting this right is to pull very slowly. If the adhesive tears, the battery needs to be pried out, which is a significantly more difficult process. If you end up having to pry the battery, I'll show you how to do that in just a bit. This method is only used as a last resort if your adhesive strips do tear. As we pointed out already, the battery is sensitive, and if it's punctured or damaged, it will catch on fire. Pry the battery with dull tools and move very, very slowly. This process can take 10 to 15 minutes alone. And if you do end up having to pry, be very mindful of only prying on this side, because the logic board motherboard is on this side. We will never pry on this side at all because you could damage this motherboard. We're only going to pry from this left side right here, and we're only going to pry from the volume buttons on down, only from this area right here. Because the volume buttons being right here, there's a flex cable that runs underneath to the motherboard, so we do not want to pry anywheres at all in this top part of the battery. Only from here down, and we're going to just go in, we're going to use the end of our tweezers since it's blunt, and we're going to just carefully pry up under here like this if the adhesive does tear. So let's go ahead with removing the adhesive strips. We have lots of room now that we took out the taptic feedback engine. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a strip started like this, and we're going to pull very slowly, and you can see it stretches a lot longer than its original, and it just keeps pulling like this. Now sometimes these tear like we pointed out, and if they do tear, I'll show you how easy it tears. If I just grab it and it tears like that. Now sometimes if they tear, they slip underneath, you can't get them. Sometimes it's underneath here, and the only way to get this loose is we have to use our pry tool. We have to gently pry up on the battery like this. Now be very, very careful. Like we mentioned, it could catch on fire, so we want to be very, very careful of this, and you don't want to go up any further than the volume buttons right here. So this is as far as we can go with trying to loosen this. If you're worried about this frame getting marked up at all, you can put a piece of tape right here if you do have to pry. It usually doesn't leave any marks, but if you're concerned about that, that is a tip that you can try. Now sometimes if it's coming up really hard, what you can do is you can flip it over here, and you can heat on the back side right here. Now be very, very careful you don't heat down here because of where the motherboard is, the logic board. You only want to heat from the volume buttons down like this. Only in this area that is safe to pry from the other side is the area that you want to heat on the back side. So it does make it easier sometimes to soften the adhesive, so you can go ahead and do that if you want. Another tip to think about if you use your hairdryer or heat gun at the area where your screws and parts are laying around, make sure to point it in a direction where it won't blow your screws around because they're very light and they can get lost and blown away. So just an extra tip to think about. So now what we're going to do, we applied some heat. We're just going to rock this a little bit, and again very carefully because we don't want to damage this or puncture it in any way. Like we have warned about, they can catch on fire. Now we're going to pull our second strip right here. Just pull gently and slowly. You can see that one's coming out the whole way. With that much adhesive strip gone, I was able to gently pry it up. Then the whole battery comes out just like that. And you can see that there's a little remaining adhesive strip here, so we just want to pry that up and get that out of there. Now it's time to reinstall your new battery. What we found works the best if you flip your battery over, and you grab your adhesive strips that came in the kit, and you just grab it and peel the plastic off. Now you're going to turn your adhesive strips like this, and you're going to align the black tabs right here with the bottom edge of the battery, and we're going to lay the strips down and press them down like this. Now we're going to peel these off here. Then we want to gently fold these over, stick them down on the battery like this. Now that that's done, we can carefully peel this off. Now since we have a little bit of room in the iPhone 7, we're going to try to line this up where the connector meets its mate right here on the logic board. We're going to try to line it up this way and center it in the iPhone this way. Now you only get one chance at this, and what I found, since the adhesive strips don't go quite all the way to the top, is that you can set the top down in here first just to give you a stability point to figure out exactly where you want to go. Then we're going to gently set the battery down in place there. We're not going to reconnect it at this point. We're just going to set it down in there and press it down. Next we'll want to reinstall our taptic engine. You can feel it with your finger, and you can just gently connect it. You can feel it snap in. Then we want to turn the taptic engine, set it down in place like that. Then we want to reinstall our screws. Then we want to grab a plastic part, set it down into place, and reinstall your screws. Now this would be a good time to reapply your adhesive strip. Next we want to reinstall our screen. So let's do this connector first, and it can be tricky to get it in here. It's kind of awkward the way it is designed. If you use your plastic spudger tool, get it close to in place, and you can get in there with your finger and gently press it down. Then we want to reconnect this connector, the shortest one first. It's underneath this long one here. Make sure that's seated properly. Make sure to not push too hard until you know that it's seated correctly, and it should just snap in. Now that you have that all ready, let's reconnect our battery here. Then before we put our shields on, we're going to test this out and make sure that it's working again. So we're going to gently lay down the screen. Make sure to not mess with the waterproof adhesive. Now that you've powered on your phone and you've made sure that everything's working, and you can see your touch is working, let's shut the phone down again. Now let's open the phone back up. Make sure not to put too much tension on your cables. Let's set our shield back in here. and reinstall these 2 screws. Next we'll set this shield back in here and reinstall these 4 screws. So now that we've got all our screws back in both shields, let's go ahead and gently set this down. Now what we're going to try to do is, without pulling up too much on this side because of the cables, we're going to gently try to slide the front part in first. Now that that's in, you can just carefully squeeze it all together, all the way down, make sure that it's together. Then we're going to grab our screws and set them in the bottom here. You can either use your fingers, or if you find it easier like I do, to use the tweezers and just set them in there. Tighten the 2 screws up. Go ahead and power up your phone. Once your phone's powered up, make sure that everything's working. And congratulations in successfully changing your battery. Thank you for choosing ScanDetect.